What is our legacy going to be after we're gone? That's the topic of today's episode of Friends Talk Financial Planning with special guest George Kinder. Hi, I'm John Shear, and I run a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin.
And I'm Bridget Sullivan-Ramel. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois. Before we get going further, please subscribe. But now let's move on to George Kinder. So George is a pioneer in the industry and has recently written a book, and he and John both are interested in legacy. So George, why don't you talk about what led you to writing your book and your thoughts about legacy?
Yeah, I'm 76 years old, and that's relatively young these days, I know. But 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 when COVID came along, I got long COVID. I had one of the earliest cases, and it was a really difficult case. And it's now, what, 5 years later, I still got it. So it wasn't complicated in the body. It was mainly fatigue. But given in those early days, we didn't know where it was going to go. I didn't know. And I thought, gosh, my whole life has been training financial planners to work with their clients to discover what would be the most incredible way to live their life and to leave a legacy. But the question became very personal for me because I didn't know how much longer I would live given what we didn't know about COVID.
Yeah.
Now I feel like, hey, I can go on for a long time with this fatigue and manage it. So what happened was I got really busy and and delivering on things that I felt were that I'd been passionate about for years and years. The life planning approach that I know we've talked about in other programs here with the three of us, which has just been a lot of fun, is helps to identify what we long for most or what would be most cool to live. And I had in my three questions. There's a thing we call the three questions. Maybe I should share them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So the first question is, if you had all the money you needed, what would you do? Second question is, if you only had 5 to 10 years left to live, what would you do? And you can see that's beginning to get closer to a legacy question, right? And then the third question is, if you only had 24 hours left, you suddenly, out of the blue, discovered that you only had 24 hours left to live. The question is more of it's a different question. It's a reflective one. Reflecting on everything that you hoped to do, anticipated doing, what did you miss? Who did you not get to be? What did you not get to do? I've kept those questions very close to my heart for 40 years. That third question is often becomes the essence of a financial plan because it captures the legacy issue. It captures it's life and death. I didn't get to be a great dad. I didn't get to be as truthful as I would have liked. My job just was too veering over here towards sales. Those are classic. That kind of serious answer can be there. I didn't get to live in the cabin in the country. And for me, they were product. I wanted to produce. So I'm a writer. So John mentioned, or maybe it was Bridget who mentioned my book. This is my most recent book, The Three Domains of Freedom. Each moment is yours, your life is yours, and civilization is yours. I want people to live in freedom. I want everybody to live in freedom. I mean, that's a passion that I have. So I'm a huge believer in democracy. I'm a huge believer in freedom of all kinds, in deep meditative freedom, and life planning and financial freedom, and in civilization is yours, civilization freedom. So legacy. There were two things in my three questions that are kind of unusual all my life. One of them was I wanted to live in the weather. It was just that simple, live in the weather.
Hmm.
Second one was illuminated manuscripts. I wanted to create illuminated manuscripts. I wanted to do beautiful paintings, ink washes, and what became photography, photographs, intermingled with um, wisdom teachings, spiritual teachings, with and what I realized when I moved to this place on Spectacle Pond, where I live in Massachusetts, was the beauty of the place. I went out and bought my first camera since I was a boy, and I got out and I just started taking pictures like crazy. And I had a project which was to capture every single day of the year in the best poetry I could, the most inspiring paragraph I could, and the most beautiful photograph I could every single day, and then to deliver that to people. So what every day? So everybody had a piece of inspiration. I was also did it for a weekly, for every week. So I came to long COVID and I went, holy cow! I've been working on this thing for 30 years, and I got thousands of photographs. Earlier it was probably 40,000 photographs and thousands of poems, and I haven't put my books together. What am I going to do? So I got busy, and in 2 years I finished 5 books
Wow.
intermingling. Uh, uh, I think you'll find them beautiful, beautiful color photography with inspiring poetry. I hope, and paragraphs of how do you live in nature so that nature is informing you with its teachings, so that you get its wisdom, and you can get it for free or a subscription, a weekly feed of it on georgekinder.com. So that was part of my legacy, John. And the other part, and Bridget, and the other part is I want civilization to be a domain of freedom for everybody. And so right now I'm pitching and I'm out talking everywhere, all over the place, in many countries. And I'm pitching a single sentence legislative proposal that all institutions put democracy, put the truth and the planet and humanity ahead of their own self-interest. And if you think about it, if our banks only lent to people who did that, and if all corporations had those standards, would we have an earth burning up? Would we have a crisis in democracy? Would we have the dramatic inequalities that we find in the world today? Would we find propaganda of news so that we're in these opposite camps? I think all of those problems would be hugely diminished if we had what I call a fiduciary culture. I've talked too much, but there you go.
No, that's wonderful. So many threads to pull on there, George. I'll take that last one first, perhaps. And I've got 11 and 12-year-old sons, and as you were describing that your proposal for what struck me was the thing we've been telling them since they could understand is treat other people like you'd like to be treated, right? Sort of the golden rule, and maybe not exactly on point, but golly, how much of life comes down to do the right thing that we all know is the right thing, and perhaps it's easier when you're 5 years old to know what the right thing is or to do the right thing given peer pressure and other things. But I think that that's such a neat thing. And one of the other things I just wanted to point out quickly here, hopefully, is just that idea of legacy. As I said, I spend a lot of time thinking about it, not so sure that I've got a handle on what it exactly means or how to do it. So I really appreciate your input. But I heard you describe what I'll call big things and little things. Big things changing how laws or countries or people look at the world, the civilization. Like that's a huge, and the legacy is what's written in grand stone on your tombstone, sort of a thing. But then also the little legacy of I had 40,000 pictures. That was his life journey. And you know what? When faced with mortality, getting that stuff done and putting it out there was really important. It's not going to necessarily change the world as this grand legacy, but still an important and vital thing. And anyway, as I heard those two, that the big and the little, and it doesn't always have to be one way, is one of the takeaways I had from just hearing you talk. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
As I've heard both of you talk, one of the things I realized about myself is that a lot of times when I think about legacy, I think about it in a kind of a self-interested way. Like well, when I'm living my life, I'm thinking, where do I want to go? What do I want to accomplish? Those types of thoughts. But legacy seems to be more of, what do I want my imprint on the world to be? And also maybe, what do I want people to not necessarily think about me, but like, how do I want the world to evolve? How can I influence the way the world's evolving and try to evolve in the direction that I think would be the healthiest for the world? So I guess big and small.
Yeah.
It seems like a great place to wrap up and give people just a lot of things to think about. I'm Bridget Sullivan-Mermel. I've got a family financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shear. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. Our guest today has been George Kinder, a pioneer in the financial planning world, in the life planning world. George has a new book out. And George, could you put the book up again so we can see the title, and tell people where they can get their copies?
So you can find it on Amazon.com, and it's a really easy read. It's small, but it's also profound. So it'll make you think and think more deeply about both the small, as Bridget and John are talking, and the large.
That's great. Thanks so much for your time here, George. Really appreciate the insights on legacy. And both Bridget and I are members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners, or ACP. If you like what you hear on our show and some of the things we talked about today with George, and would like to find an advisor in your area, you can check out acplanners.org.
And please subscribe.